Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inspirational Journeys Through Life with Straight Talk with Nolan. I have a journey, you have a journey, but how many of us actually share our journeys to inspire others out there? There are millions of people that can resonate with our journeys, and by us telling our stories, we allow them the opportunity to see what we experience in life, and a lot of them would understand where we're coming from as well. My name is Nolan Pillay, and I'm your host for today. And it's my privilege and my honor to welcome Christy, or Ka-NEWB, to the call today. She is an author, comedian, a mom, a business owner, and self-proclaimed hoe from Pennsylvania, United States. She launched a mental health project recently titled Mentally Kill, a project she believes will revolutionize the way we educate about mental health. She also has a YouTube channel called And Miles to Go Before I Sleep. And I must say, I watched it 2 times already. And it's such an amazing and inspiring story as well, where she actually gives a recount of being the target of a kidnapping and sexual assault, as well as the torture and being left for dead. Welcome, Christy, to the call. It's such an honor to have you here today. Can you tell our audience and our listeners in about 2 minutes a bit more about yourself before we dive into the questions?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. Let's start there. It's my honor to be on the show. A little about me. I am the youngest of 3 daughters, and my mom was a single parent. So I kind of grew up not being heard. You know, nobody ever listens to the youngest child. So that's kind of where I was growing up. So I usually dove into books and learning and reading, and going to the library was kind of my niche. So when I went to college, and I was the first one in my family to do so, I was still 17. It was 10 days after high school. And I had something that you mentioned, very traumatic, happen to me. And unfortunately, that happened at a time where I was just learning who I was as an adult and as a person. And then my identity was taken from me. And throughout this time, it's been about 13 years now since that happened, I didn't tell anybody because I had that younger child syndrome. I didn't think anybody would care. I didn't think anybody was listening. And it did damage to my brain to keep that story and that secret, because I was holding it for no one. There's nobody that I owed holding a secret to. And it wasn't until this year when I had an attempt and had some help mentally that I finally felt comfortable, with my voice and my story and being able to speak about it. So now I've launched a mental health project called Mentally Kill, and that's really been taking all of my time and my comedy and my child. So That's really about me.
Well, I'm grateful that you survived the attack, and I'm also grateful that you're there to tell the story. And I'm sure there's millions of people out there as well that would love to listen to it more. I will be sharing that YouTube link at the end of the podcast as well, so others can go in and listen to the story. It's so amazing, and especially, we'll touch on it a little later on, add miles to go before I sleep. It was such an interesting statement that you made in there as well. So Christy, tell me, what started your journey to healing from your trauma?
So for me, it honestly started in 2020. In August of 2020, I was about to turn 30 years old. I was like, I am not going through my 30s with the night terrors and these feelings, because I felt empty all of the time. I didn't want to be alone with myself. I didn't actually love myself, and I wasn't enjoying my life. I was living my life, but I wasn't loving it. And that's the problem. So I started seeing a therapist, and it was the first time I really started talking about what happened to me. And maybe 6 appointments in, we hadn't even finished going through fully what happened. My 18-year-old sister passed away, and she was very close to me. And it not only triggered something for me because of the relationship, but I was also just 18 when I almost died. So for me, it was like, why did I survive and she didn't? The guilt, survivor's guilt for something that I had no control over either time. And it took me down a bad path. Addiction, we'll just say vices that I should not have been doing. Anything I could to escape my reality. And it ended with me making an attempt on my life in April of this year. And thankfully, I survived, and I got the help that I needed. And since then, I have done everything in my power to help anybody else who might have felt like I felt in those moments, because I felt alone and like nobody would understand me. And it wasn't until this year, in really, that the story that I shared and recorded was the first time from start to finish I had done so. Nobody knew what happened to me. Even good friends of mine, they knew tidbits, little things, but they never knew the whole story. I didn't trust anybody to tell the whole story. But then I realized, why do I need to? It's not a secret. You didn't do anything wrong, you know? So it was just accepting that for myself, and then, you know, trusting in people to tell my story and feel comfortable enough to. And since I've done that, I've had an outpouring of people who were inspired by me sharing my story to share theirs. And that is enough for me. So.
Oh, that's beautiful as well. And if you think about it, it's just 7 months since the April incident, right? Where
Right.
It's not very long ago, but if I just listen to you now, you speak with so much of confidence and so much of energy as well. So, you know, in 7 months, if you can come through something like this, what stops other people from coming through it as well? Just by understanding that they have to start with the self-love. And I see you've done a lot of that as well, because healing doesn't start from the outside world. It must start from your inner world. But when you're healing as well, you need to take responsibility for your own healing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and something else I just want to add too, because it's not just about self-love, it's also about self-acceptance. You can't love it until you fully accept your light and your dark, so to speak, or the good parts of you and the bad parts. Loving yourself means that you accept yourself fully at face value and you're willing to grow. So.
Wow. That's well said, right? I like that as well, self-acceptance.
Yes.
It's something that we need to learn and practice often, right, as well. Because sometimes we get swayed in a different direction and we forget who we are and we forget to love ourselves and accept.
That's right.
Because as humans, we're never going to have a perfect life, right? Whoever has a perfect life, if you are having this perfect life, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear your story. But life is all about ups and downs, and that's what makes us the beautiful beings that we are as well.
I agree. Yeah.
So tell me some of the values that are most important to you. And, you know, what's interesting is these values, you've been through a lot in life, right? You know, losing your sister, almost being murdered, etc. What are some of these values that still stuck with you? And I'm sure these values just didn't come out from anywhere. It was always there. You just needed to find it.
Yeah. Honestly, the first one that really sticks out to me is loyalty. Because for a long time, I wore a mask, especially around my family. You know, I was always the smart one, the golden child, and I had to do right all of the time because that was their expectation of me. And I wore that mask so long. There's only two things that happen when you fake who you are. Number one, you either become that fake person and you're never truly happy, or it eats you alive. And that's what happened to me in April. It was eating me alive to pretend that I was okay when I was not. You know, it was eating me alive to not speak up because I didn't want to mar my family in some way. It was easier for me to let them believe that I was just an alcoholic or, you know, I was just an addict instead of saying, I'm running from something, you know? So when I got out of the hospital and I realized that the people that are supposed to be loyal to me were not, I had to change my entire perception of what loyalty was, because now I have the people around me that love me for who I am, as I am, not for what they want me to be. So that really holds true to me. And courage. Courage is one of my favorite words, because it's not that you're not scared. We all get scared, but it's being able to look past that and say, I am scared, but guess what? I know that I can do it. And having that courage and taking that step and putting your foot forward. Yeah. So, and I guess appreciation. I've practiced a lot of that. Those are my top three. I'll leave it at 3. Appreciation, really, truly appreciating what I have and who I am and what I'm not, more importantly.
Wow. So many key points in there that you mentioned. If I just speak about loyalty for a second, it's
sure.
Only when we go through these difficult times or in our lives, then we realize who's those true friends or the people that really believe in us as well. So I'm sure your
That's right.
circle is a bit smaller as well, right?
Very much so. And you know what? My circle was small to begin with people that I kept nearby me. The people that were in my circle were in my circle for over 15 years, half of my life. And guess what? Even some of those people were not loyal to me. So no matter how small you keep your circle, it will get even smaller as you go. And it doesn't matter the amount of time or the history. You can't control what other people do or how they treat you. So you have to learn to only recognize and deal with how it makes you feel and then move forward. So.
Sure. Well said. Well said. It's such an important thing as well. So you also spoke about courage as well, right? You went through so much of pain, in my opinion, and you turned this pain into so many different successes along the way. If I look at about the organization you started up as well, you plucked up the courage basically to do a YouTube video, something that people don't want to do. So you became vulnerable with the intention of helping other people who have gone through similar. That's like really strong and brave, and it's showing your authenticity as well. So I'm sure all of this is really not easy, right? There had to be some motivation behind it. What really motivates you?
Well, first I'd like to say thank you, by the way. And I'd also like to put a side note that I was trying to pre-record that video because my idea was to pre-record it, launch it live, like stream it, and then just go shut my computer down. But every time I tried to record it, I couldn't do it. So finally, that video, I just went live and just said it. Whether anybody was listening or not, I just went live because I was like, if I don't just do it, it's not getting done. But to kind of dial back to what you said, I told the story, and I'm going to be honest here because I am very transparent. When I first recorded it, it wasn't for anybody else. That was for me, because for a very long time, there was a younger version of myself screaming for justice, for being left for dead, for being brutalized the way I had. I hadn't even acknowledged it or accepted it. So that younger version of myself is like, hello, like, how long are you going to ignore me? I need some kind of justice, some kind of closure. By doing this, it kind of gave a voice to that younger version of myself that's been screaming at me for a very long time. And it helped me make peace with myself. And I love that now people are listening to it and they are getting courage and they understand me, more importantly. I've had a long period of time where people just do not understand me, but that's because they had no idea what I had been through. A lot of my behaviors and the things that I do, why I don't let men sleep over my house, because I'm afraid I'll wake up screaming and I don't want to have to explain why. A lot of my behaviors that I never gave an explanation because I'm just not that kind of girl. I'm not explaining myself to you. You take me at face value or you don't. I don't have to defend my behaviors unless they're negative, in which case I will, or I'll apologize. But, that's growth. But as far as, behaviors that are relating to trauma response or something, or my mental health conditions, I'm not explaining myself. You can accept me at face value or you don't. And that's entirely up to you. That's your power. But it helped me understand myself, and it helped other people understand me as a public figure that I already was with doing comedy and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know our stories until, and they just assume, and just judge us based on who we are currently. They don't realize the struggles that you actually went through as well as a person. So
that's right.
I'm interested to know, after you plucked up the courage to do this video on live, how did you feel after doing it?
I was numb, because the day that I had done it was the 2-year anniversary of my little sister's death. So, yeah. So for me, it was like kind of closing a chapter of my book, for me. I'm now closing this self-hatred and, secretive and mysterious version of myself. And now I'm stepping into this next part of my life as fully transparent. People know who I am because I give myself exactly how I am, and I'm not changing it. So it's really me stepping into my power and feeling powerful in return. But at the time, I think you could tell by my voice in the video, I was just numb.
Yeah.
It was a very hard day. So I think that's why I chose to just do it. I was like, let me just, rip the Band-Aid off and just do it all at once. And I mean, it had to take a few days to recover. But I have, like I said, good support system, and I have a beautiful son. So I had the support and love here that I needed.
Well, you're actually teaching your son as well that no matter what he goes through as well, be open about it. Don't keep it in, because the more you keep it in, the more you're going to kind of go into depression and restrict yourself as well. And I really like, and I'm sure the listeners and the viewers are going to like what you actually said early on. You had to go to the younger Christy and speak to her. So you had to do a lot of shadow work in order to erupt into this person that you have become now as well.
Yeah.
So was it a difficult shadow work when you had to go back and revisit the younger you?
So it's a little bit difficult for me because at the time of my trauma, I had recessed memories. Basically, when we go through something like I did, our brain pulls half of those memories back because it's too much for us as a person to handle at once. Our brains cannot handle it. So it pulls back memories. So when I got back to my dorm, all that I remembered was being kidnapped and walking home. I remembered none of the sexual violence. I remembered none of the knife play. I remembered none of the torture, none of it until this year. So up until this year, I really was embarrassed by what happened to me. Like you were 18 and you got kidnapped. Who does that? But going back and finishing my trauma narrative or the story of what happened, which for those who don't know is just literally sitting with a pen and paper and rewriting everything you can remember over and over and over. And it unlocks memories. And that's exactly what happened. And it kind of took me to a point where I was like embarrassed to, wow, I am amazing. Like, I'm hair flipping. I'm like confident, it changed my entire perception of myself. So yes, there is more shadow work that I have to do because there are other traumas in my life that I've been through that I haven't dealt with. But, that big empty piece or that cog in the wheel that's been sitting there for a long time, to remove that, and just finally get a full understanding of not just what happened to me, but who I am now because of it is a beautiful thing. But it does take a lot of work. I highly suggest you going to a medical professional. Don't do it like I did. Because for me, it was my son had gone away for the weekend and I had just gotten out of the hospital. And when I went to the hospital, it was the first time I was by myself with no distraction. And that's really where I started getting the memories. There are some weird things that happen in the hospital, but mentally, but I'm not going to get into that here because it's just a lot. And it's hard to understand and follow because I don't even understand it. But kind of being by myself, I had to relive it again. And you feel everything and you smell everything and you can hear things that are there. And it was really terrifying at the time. And I'm sure the hospital, I have no idea what I was like. I was probably a primal animal. I have no idea. But when I got out of the hospital and my son went away for an extended weekend, I was like, no, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write this out from start to finish. I'm going to find out, like a Lifetime movie or a movie, what happened from start to finish, because I can't accept it and I can't heal from it until I know what happened. So that's what I did. I sat down for an entire weekend. I went to the store, I bought snacks and drinks, and I literally locked myself in my bedroom and I did nothing but write. And it was an ugly process, very ugly. Shadow work is not cute.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is, deeply personal and private. So
true. And again, it's back to self-acceptance as well. So
that's right.
And it's never too late to work on our shadows, because we as humans, we are a work in progress, right? We're working on ourselves every single day. And
that's right.
For you, it's like what, 18 years later that you have to...
I think it's like 13 at this point. Yeah. 12, 13 years.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And that we have to start doing the work again. So the point is, it's never too late to work on ourselves. We have to be a work in progress as well. So, wow. Well done on that. I'm really, glad that you could share this with everyone as well, because a lot of people think that they cannot heal past traumas and stuff, and you can. You just need to start accepting it and start doing the shadow work, visiting your younger self and having these conversations.
Right.
I want to ask, is there a book out already, or is there a book in the pipeline?
The book is in progress. So
oh, that's awesome.
I am writing a trauma narrative. The thing I'm kind of stuck on is whether I want to take some things out just for other people's sake, to be honest, because it does get pretty gruesome. And even when I give my recount, I don't really get into how violent and how gruesome it was, because for me, I am the only person who went through that. And even though people tend to like to read those things, I don't want them to read those things. Yeah. So I just put it kind of like a baseline. But with my publisher, I'm kind of working on that, because she's like, no, you have to get, you have to tell them what happened. And I'm like, whether or not I actually want to do that or make it a little more off topic and a little more fantasy like in that part to just make it a little easier to digest. That's what I'm still working on, but I'm hoping to have it out by the end of next year. So
that's cool. If I may just suggest as well, just be authentic and remember, it's your story. Own your story and say it the way you want to say it. I've always learned that, because it doesn't really help to sugarcoat it as well for us as humans as well. So we got to deal with it. So, think about it, how you want to tell your story. And I'm glad that you own your story. And as gruesome as it is, these are real life things that happen. It's a reality out there as well. People go through this on a daily basis as well, and they get stuck and they don't know how to deal with it. So just something to think about as well, right?
Right.
The next thing I want to check with you as well, like, why do you feel it's so common that people are silent about mental health issues?
So, I mean, there's a reason that there's a stigma, and here it is. We are meant and accustomed to trying to present ourselves in a way that people like. And when I say that, I mean picture perfect, cookie cutter, just like the school gives a curriculum, everybody's learning the same lessons. They want everybody to present themselves in a way that's as perfect as possible, unmarred, no flaws, especially when it comes to social media. But that's a fantasy. Yeah. And people stay quiet because they don't know there's something wrong a lot of the time. We don't have mental health education. It's not like we're saying, okay, I'm hearing voices at night. That's not normal. They think that's normal because they don't know that nobody else hears that at night, or people who, let's say, have bipolar and they jump from one mood to the other really quickly. They have no idea that that's not an average or normal behavior because they're not educated about it. So I feel like a lot of the time, there's a couple of reasons that we're quiet about it. Number one, because we don't want to appear imperfect, because there's a chance that we will not be accepted. And we all want to be accepted no matter what. But also because we're not sure what's going on, especially for me, the mental health conditions that I have, I had no idea they even existed until I went to the hospital. And now that I know the symptoms and know what it is, I've been suffering for a really long time and had no idea, feeling empty and having fixated persons and obsessing. I had no idea that those are not average or normal behaviors. I thought that was normal because I didn't have any mental health education. Mental health wasn't spoken about in my family. And that's not to villainize anybody. They had no idea. How could they teach me something they don't know? So a lot of the time it's just education and the fear of not being accepted. So
yeah, again, it's the fear of not being accepted as well, right? That holds so many people back. So it's about breaking through that fear barrier and, it's speaking up, because in the generation that we live in now, or the century that we live in now, mental health, people are speaking about it more often as well. People are realizing that there is a huge problem out there and we need to start educating people. We need to start working together to make sure that every one of us, we go through mental health issues, right? And the more we keep it in us, the more it's not going to do us a favor. So we've got to speak up and be educated about it as well.
Absolutely.
It's a fact of life, and it's caused through many things, conditioned backgrounds, stressful lives, toxic environments, toxic family. It could be anything toxic that could throw us into this as well. So I'm glad that you are advocating for mental wellness as well. And
Thank you.
You started up the program on it as well. So more people need to really find out about it. So thanks for speaking up and showing up for the rest of us as well.
Yeah. I like to call it like a generational curse. So for my family, our generational curse was silenced emotions. We didn't express how we felt if it was a negative emotion. You know, we didn't talk about those things. And for me, I mean, my biggest achievement to myself and my biggest accomplishment for this was to break that curse. I'm going to be loud and proud about how I'm feeling because I'm not ashamed of how I feel, because I know that it's okay to not be okay. Whether or not you agree doesn't affect how I feel about me or how I'm going to continue living my life. So,
yeah, it's breaking. You have to break the pattern. I know also when I was growing up as well, you couldn't speak about certain things to your family members. You had to be
absolutely
silent about it and just keep whatever you are experiencing in your mind. So I like that. Break that generational curse. We've got all the tools, all the resources out there as well to stand up and speak up as well. We got to. So it's great for glad that you stood up.
Thank you. Me too.
It does. What would be your favorite quote, you think, and why? I'm sure there must be something that you stand by.
So there is a quote, and it is by one of my favorite authors. Her name is Margaret Mitchell. She wrote Gone with the Wind, which is a very old film. But the book itself has a lot of quotes in it that are absolutely beautiful. And I hope I don't butcher this because I don't have it right in front of me. But it says, until you've ruined your reputation, you won't realize how much of a burden it was or what freedom really is. And that hits me very deeply because we all are stuck in this reputation circle that I like to call it, with other people's expectations, not realizing that the only expectations that we need to meet are our own. And again, until I did ruin my reputation, as far as for me, my family, and even in public, you know, I'm known as always being very happy, very cheerful, you know, no problems ever. She's always smiling. And I could finally be vulnerable, you know, and show that I too have scars. And there are things that I'm suffering from too. And that I'm not always okay and smiling and perfect all the time. And when I broke that reputation, it finally made me feel like I could really be myself. So that quote is just kind of everything to me. So
yeah, it's very profound as well. And you're right, it's about reputation. And unfortunately, we spoke about social media early on as well. It doesn't really help us because, you know, with these filter systems as well, people are trying to be somebody they're not. Everybody wants to be a celeb. Why can't people just be themselves? You know, why can't we just be ourselves? And more so, people must appreciate us for who we are. If you don't appreciate me for who I am, too bad. I am going to be me.
You know, they don't have to.
Like you said, take it or leave it, right?
That's right. And you know what? And a lot of people don't realize when it comes to social media that it is fantasy.
Yeah.
I could post a picture of myself on an airplane right now, but obviously I'm sitting in a room, you know, and nobody knows any different. And now there's 20 people looking at that picture wishing they were me in that moment. And in reality, I'm sitting in a room. I'm wishing I was me in that picture in the moment, you know? People don't realize that. We tend to use our phones as a way to escape our own reality. And if you just work on your own reality, you wouldn't have one that you needed to escape from. Yeah. So.
And I guess the agenda in today's century is the more likes I get, the more people love me. But people don't realize those likes are just likes, right? We shouldn't be living by the amount of likes we have. We should be living for the value that we can bring to people and people can see in us as well.
That's right.
No sense having 1 million followers when you don't even know half of those followers, or maybe 1% or 0.5% of them as well. So people do really strange things in life. And, you know, for me, it becomes a risk. And I keep speaking about this because let's say on Instagram, for example, I go and I use the filter system and I try to be somebody I'm not. And here Christy comes along, she meets me on Instagram. We set up a coffee date, we meet over coffee, and then you say, wow, but this is not the Nolan that I see on Instagram. Immediately that's going to lead to conflict, right?
That's right.
And we don't know where else that would lead. It could lead to some type of violence as well. So people need to start realizing we are unique human beings. Be ourselves, for ourselves. It's as simple as that. So tell me, you've been through a lot already. I still encourage the listeners and the viewers out there to go. You'll see the YouTube link at the end of this podcast. Go and watch this podcast, and believe me, you'll really appreciate life even more as well. Christy, where do you think you're going to be in 5 years' time? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Because I'm sure now you have this planning ahead after everything you've been through.
Yeah. So for me in 5 years, because I do have a lot of things I'm working on the side, aside from my project too, I see myself all over. It is going to get to a point where you're not going to have a choice but to see me, whether it's in part of the TV show that I'm filming, or whether it's through my books, or whether it's through me doing public speaking, which is coming, motivational speaking, or it's me doing my comedy, or whatever the case may be, or just being an amazing mom or a business owner, which I am too. I am not going to give anybody a choice but to see me, because I spent way too long hiding the skills and talents that I have. So I'm ready, and I am working hard, trust me, to bring that to the world. So within the next 5 years, I better be sitting on someone's yacht, is what I'm saying. I deserve it.
No, I like that. Make your presence known as well, because with your presence being like that, you're going to help other people as well. And that's right. A major value add as a person. So I like that. Be on a yacht in 5 years' time as well, just chilling and doing your videos from there, your motivational videos from there as well. Why not?
Yeah. And yelling from a yacht is going to be my next podcast. So, but I encourage everybody to do that. Wake up every morning with a mindset that I want everybody to see what I have to offer, because there is no one in the world that can offer the world what you can, but you. Exactly. And what that is, it's entirely up to you. So
you create your own destination, right? And you just don't only create your destination. When you want to create like a goal, for example, as well, you work towards it. You take the steps. We can't just sit back and expect God to give us everything or everything to fall on our laps. You got to take the action.
That's right.
You have to just get off. This idea about just lounging around and expecting to win the lottery is never going to happen in a very, very long time as well.
Absolutely.
So if I go back, let's reduce the 5 years to a year. What can we expect from you in a year's time?
So to be fair, in a year, I'm still working on cleaning up a very big mess that I made before I went to the hospital, because, I was ready to go. So I acted accordingly. I kind of messed up all of my finances and my life in shambles. So I see myself a year from now steady, finally back at least even, if not above where I was before I made my attempt. But also, I want to have my book out, and I want to at least have my TV show filmed. So, because I know that's not coming out for another about 2 years, but within a year, it'll be done being filmed, and my book will be out, 2 of them actually, because I do have my comedy style book, my whole handbook. And other than that, I just want to be happy. I want to be happier than I am now, which is still pretty happy. So
I like that. How many people say in the next year, I want to be happier? People don't really say that, right? People
happier and better. So
happier and better as well. Because I like that, because every single day when I also wake up, I always ask myself, what can I do today to be better than I was yesterday?
Absolutely, yeah.
You highlighted something so important to the listeners out there as well, that the only competition you have is yourself, no one else. Yeah. Don't try and compete with everyone. No, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. Wow, well done.
When you set your baseline as somebody else's success, you're never going to be happy, and you will always disappoint yourself, because again, nobody can offer the world what you can, just like nobody can offer that person in the world but them. By comparing yourself to somebody else's journey, you're not finishing your own. You're not worried about your purpose and what you offer the world.
Yeah.
You mean I have the same skills or the same path, So you got to focus on what you can bring to the world instead.
True. And you're a unique being as well. So, people must also think that they must not think that there's no opportunities out there as well, because there's an abundance of opportunities as well. So a lot of people are scared to venture out because they believe there's nothing out there. You just need to look. You just need to ask the right questions as well.
That's right.
That's the key to it. So Christy, I must say, I'm so grateful for your story. Thank you for inspiring our listeners and our audience today as well. If you have to tell them, what kind of advice can you give to the listeners out there?
Okay. This is my biggest piece of advice. I'll try to keep it short, but live your life with intent. What I mean by that, you need to live for you intentionally, on purpose. You need to stop worrying about and trying to fit into these social and cultural norms, because we're not meant to. They may be a baseline for normal, but what is normal? It's different for everyone. Be yourself, be who you are, live your life with intent, and be honest with yourself. Because when you lie to yourself, you're wearing a mask to yourself. And again, when you're wearing a mask, or, you're hiding in a closet or hiding who you are in any kind of way, you are telling yourself that you don't even think you're worth loving. And that is not fair, and it's not true. You have value, you have a purpose. You just have to take the time and love yourself enough to try and find it.
Love it. I love it. Especially live your life with intent,
Yep.
And that's with purpose. We all should be living purpose-driven lives. There's so much we have to offer the world out there.
I think that's probably one of the biggest problems, is we forget we have a purpose. You know, we get so sidetracked with everybody else that we forget, we had a purpose here too,
We forget who we are in the process as well. And we keep blaming other people for that as well, right? When the person that we should blame is ourselves.
Right. That's right.
It's got to start from within as well. Wow.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inspiring us once again. So to all our listeners and our viewers, thank you for listening to our show today. Please go onto YouTube. I'm going to share all the links. If you like this podcast, please like it. Just click on like, comment on it as well. And there's an alarm on the right-hand side that says subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And please share this with as many people out there as possible. There's so many people that can be inspired by our stories. And the only way we can get these stories out there is by allowing you to listen to it and to share it with as many people as possible as well. So my name is Nolan Pillay. I'm your host of Inspirational Journeys Through Life with Straight Talk with Nolan. Christiane, thank you so much once again. Really appreciate your time and grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the platform.
It's my pleasure.